Finally, a very special ability of the heart is that it enables us to participate in the life of the higher world. We have just said, an Agni yogi lives in two worlds. The new man who wants to become a being of spirit must learn to participate in the life of his home, the spiritual world. What do you mean by participation? First and foremost, you must be able to perceive what is going on there. One must cultivate subtlety of the senses within oneself, so that through the earthly noise, the supermundane manifestations can be heard. One should learn to perceive the supermundane light with closed eyes. It is thus that the manifestations of the subtle world approach, and you will not speak about their unexpectedness, for you will feel their approach with your heart. Of course, you do not often recognize the exact nature of an occurrence, but in any case you will know of its approach. Indeed, you will sense the vibrations well in advance. Inexperienced people may think these sensations are signs of illness, for their vibrations are so unusual. But a sensitive observer will be able to adapt himself quickly to the approach of supermundane vibrations and respond to them. Thus is developed true cooperation. The thinker instructed, be sharp-sighted, so that at any moment you can perceive the supermundane signs. What are these subtle manifestations? Well, it is all about aspects of the subtle reality which you can only recognize with your spiritual senses. When we shall now be talking about clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairscenting, we do not have in mind fakir arts, but the quite natural ability to develop and refine your heart's sensitivity to such an extent that you can grasp revelations of the non-material world which are not accessible to the five gross senses. Cognizance of fiery influences is divided in accordance with the senses. The first impression is that of seeing, with all its fiery diversity. Then hearing is added, with the music of the spheres, bells, and the chords of nature. Then comes the refinement of touch, with the sensations of rhythm, of heat and cold. The most difficult of all are the sensations of smell and taste. Yet Urusvati knows the meaning of scenting a man at a remote distance. Urusvati also knows something else that is very difficult, to sense the taste of a metal in the subtle world, which is already an extraordinary subtlety. Isn't this just esoteric playfulness? No, not at all. It is essential for survival. Just imagine, you enter another sphere after death and failed to develop your inner senses, the eyes and ears of your heart. What will be the consequence? You will be blind and deaf in the subtle world. A terrible state that will leave you disorientated and utterly helpless. You will be completely in the dark in an unfamiliar environment. You do not realize what kind of beings are near you, friendly or hostile, and what is going on in your surroundings. Blindness in the subtle world is dreadful. Imagine yourself entering a half-darkened house, in the corners of which lurk indistinguishable images, all intermingled and surrounded by indistinct spots. Even where no particular monsters exist, he who is blind and malicious will see horrible shapes. Actually, instead of fiery beings, he will vaguely discern 2 or 3 sparks, which will have no meaning for him. When you silence the noise of the world and create stillness, you will begin to hear the sounds of this spiritual sphere through clairaudience. Sometimes you are absent, as it were, from current life. Sometimes you can hear the sounding of the distant worlds. The sounds of the subtle world remind one of the finest singing on earth, yet their meaning is entirely different. There is no silence, because once the earthly sounds are still, the echoes of the subtle world begin to be heard. The voice of silence resounds. As the manifested world fades away, the voice of the subtle world awakens. Only the heart can listen to and understand the light touches of the supermundane world. This must be remembered. The thinker said, "Teacher, teach me to understand the whisper of the supermundane." Listen to the sounds of nature. Like Saint Francis of Assisi, learn to comprehend what the birds are chirping to you. What do the grasses hum? What do the trees rustle? What does the rose whisper? What does the wind breathe? What does the sea roar? What does the brook murmur to you? Hearken to the song of the waterfall, which is the title of this painting by Nicholas Roerich. It is said that Lao Tzu often conversed with waterfalls. This is not a fairy tale, for he listened to the resonance of nature and sharpened the sensitiveness of his hearing to the point of discerning the qualities of the vibrations. Without realization of the significance of music, it is also impossible to understand the sounding of nature. And of course, it is impossible then to think about the music of the spheres. Only noise will be accessible to the spirit of the ignorant. The song of waterfall, or river, or ocean will only be a roar. The wind will not bring melody. and will not resound in the trees as a solemn hymn. The best harmonies vanish for the unopened ear. In the whispering of the leaves, in the splash of the waves, in the murmur of the breeze, I am with you. Listen to the music of the higher world, to the choirs of angels, to the marvelous music of the spheres. One should learn to discern the fundamental sounds. At times they fill space like a resounding string, at times like many-voiced choirs. At times they resemble a majestic symphony, but sometimes one can hear the song of one voice. Thus can be heard the music of the spheres. Space resounds with a special rhythm at every moment. Urusvati heard the music of the spheres and knows that its main power is in harmony and in rhythm. But there are no instruments on earth that can express all the grandeur of the calls of space. So far, the great composers have only been able to capture a small part of this supramundane beauty and to reflect it in their works. A great master of music must be born, who will give to humanity glimpses of the symphony of the spheres. The time is coming when people will have a great need for the symphonies of space, whose harmonies will be a true panacea. Ambassadors of sound did come in the past, but they had little success in transmitting what they had heard in the subtle spheres. From the lower layers of the subtle world, on the other hand, terrible sounds reach us. When one listens to the lower super-earthly sphere, one may be shocked by the tortured groans, wails, and cries of terror. You learn to perceive ethereal fragrances through clairscenting. Sometimes you can sense the air and the aroma of remote localities. You affirm immeasurable manifestations amid daily life. Indeed, you do not deceive yourself in sensing these fleeting contacts, which demonstrate how powerful the human being is. A sensitive person knows that the breath of the saints is fragrant. Lower, impure consciousnesses, on the other hand, actually emit a subtle, awful stink, which cannot be perceived with the nose, even if, physically, they have washed themselves thoroughly. Good is a fragrance, evil a poisonous stench. The smell of decay accompanies anything low, on the physical plane as well as on the spiritual. Through spiritual development, people free themselves from the unpleasant odors which are natural to undeveloped organisms. When a man returns from the pure outdoor air, he emits a fragrant odor. Equally fragrant is the consciousness overshadowed by blessing. The stench of irritation is dreadful.